Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Vayigash, the end of this beautiful, beautiful sichel. Okay, let me try to finish through. So we were saying, basically, we're talking about the building of yeshivas and the realization that even in Mitzrayim, which was the hardest goals for the Yidden from 4 different reasons, nevertheless, they had a yeshiva, and therefore we should always have yeshivas. We should understand the yeshiva as foundation of Yiddishkeit. And we said that people come and they say, yeah, okay, fine. So we'll have a Talmud Torah, we'll learn a little bit, but when they get 13, you have to get a proper education, quote unquote. And so we're saying, listen, it was much harder in Galus Mitzrayim, and they always had yeshivas. Yeshiva is very important. That's what we're sort of up to. Zayin. The Gemara, in Avodah Zarah, the Ish Din, very interesting discussion. Discussion in the Gemara is, if basically you have to be on a road with either Avodah Zarah or Halatz, what's better, what's worse? You know, how does it work? Which one? What's the choice? So the Rebbe is going to analyze this, and it's another point, and we're learning in these sichos is how to see things. And if we learn it enough, we should be able to do it ourselves. Meaning, this question Rebbe has, if you think about it, and like it's very simple, like I've said many times, the Rebbe's questions are a lot of times very basic. The answer needs a lot of knowledge, but the question itself is pretty basic, and that we should be able to have those questions. And then with time, we should learn enough to be able to have those answers as well. But let's see. So Gemara Yesh Din, it says there's din in the Gemara, Heichon Garua Yesi Laden Lava. What's the worst place a person to have to pass through? In a street that has halats, or in a street that has avodah zarah. So this is the Rebbe's question. Seemingly, Yesh Lahavin, understand this b'chol. Shekain Gam Riya, I feel loy hiru mazik, because when you see something, even if it doesn't excite you, it still affects. So in contrast, avodah zarah, what's the big deal? You're going to pass to avodah zarah place with avodah zarah. Why? Because there's no issue of seeing by the street of Zaynes, of Halatz. It's a problem, you see Halatz. Even if it doesn't get you excited, but you see it, has an effect. Whereas when you go past avodah zarah, what are you seeing exactly? You see stones, rocks, you see trees. What are you seeing? You're seeing just plain stuff, not people. So the reason is, so then this meaning the Rebbe's question is, how can we have, what's the discussion exactly? How can you contrast seeing something from seeing a person that is being a halal, which is much worse than seeing some stones or some wood made in the shape of an idol? So what's the point here? Everything affects the surrounding. In a place where there's tumah, the air has tumah. Not just about the site, but it's about the environment and the air around it. So the air has this tumah. Meaning, we're questioning how can you compare on a street with the Zaynes to a street with avodah zarah? Avodah zarah are just some physical things. It's not a person. So you're saying, yeah, but that affects it affects the avir. And the discussion only about sight, but it's about the avir, the air, the atmosphere. And the atmosphere of a street with avodah zarah is very bad. Just like the atmosphere of a street with halats is very bad. So it's not an incomparable thing. They're both very comparable. And that's what are we saying? The air, the spirit of the street. You know, you go to like the suburbs, and you have a street that's just friendly. Then you go to the projects, and the street is dangerous. And that's what we're saying. It has an effect. You walk down the street over there in a nice suburb, it feels good and comfortable and friendly. Then you go to another place, it feels the opposite. So what does it mean for us? Now, what we're talking about yeshivas. So the avir of the streets, the bad avir could be that now's not the time for yeshivas. Hashpa gam al chelik mitalmidei yeshiva, and this has an effect also on the students. Meaning like this: the avir. I want to try to get through this. There's a lot of stuff here, but the avir, meaning it's the environment on the streets. Meaning, what's the word on the streets? It's like they said. I heard last night I was at a rain that Rabbi Hella from the Kelo, when he was growing up as a kid, he lived in this like small town in, I think maybe it was Sweden, Switzerland, and the talk, the sort of the lashon hara wasn't even like a public thing. It was like, like in the back end, people were saying that there's a new rabbi in America that speaks on a microphone. What's the word on the streets? So over there, it was a very chassidish place, a very holy place. So the word on the street is the rabbi using a microphone. But unfortunately, the word on the street in other places, and this is what they were talking about, is that going to yeshiva is a waste of time. So yesh talmidim hatoyim shekash alehem lulmod kifi aroi. So the students that are complaining, they're saying it's hard for us to learn properly. Mishum shehem chayavim tchila lahavtiach la'atzmam parnassa. They have to be certain for themselves parnassa. How can I learn comfortably and relax when I have to think about how I'm going to make a parnassa? Einhu muchshar lilmoid b'shalva. He's not able to learn b'shalva calmly. Mishum sh'raya noisav makitzim loy b'mai parnes es yiladav shakadosh baruch hu yitein loy la'achar she'yigir lo'einas hashiduchim. But he's thinking to himself, how am I going to make parnassa for my kids after I get married? Therefore, he's stressed now. V'taplu b'davar, and he's going to work on this. V'yimtza es bas zugay, and he's going to find his wife. Shidduch, v'yinas, he's going to get married. V'yoladav la'achar miken, and the children are going to come after all this. Hayaladim b'shah teva masachas. What's going to be? Meaning, they're trying to show that it's like in so many steps. It's like we say to ourselves, what's going to be by my son's bar mitzvah? It's like, you're not even married yet, and it's like, what are you stressing out about something that's not even in existence? And this is what the Rebbe is saying. What's going to be at the end of it? What am I going to leave over to my family? What am I going to inherit to my kids? And then he goes in the street with all these thoughts and this power, these thoughts. Or minimally think that Parnassa. This is a thing that we all had. I think a lot of us have. What's going to be? How are you going to do this? And how are you going to survive? So when you're in yeshiva, you're not able to learn properly because you're thinking about what's going to happen when I have to support my kids. Meaning, first years of marriage, really, you what do you need already? You don't know that much. Once you have kids, you need a proper Parnassa. That's difficult. So you're stressing on yeshiva, and I can't learn yeshiva properly, and I'm stressing about this. But the question is, where is this coming from? You don't need to be thinking about this now. So where does it come from? It's coming from the streets. Even though that the Friedrich said that the ice in America, the coldness of America, has already moved. So even though the ice is moving, but there's a difference in the ice being moving and ice being consumed and burnt up by the consuming fire of Hashem. Also, there's leftovers from the past. And there's some students that are still getting from the past. Meaning, yeah, America has changed and it's not as bad as it used to be. This is what the Rebbe was saying back then. that it used to be a lot worse and it's getting better, but it's not as good as it could be. And so too with us, and so too, and there's a lot of brains that to be had over here that unfortunately we can't have. But the point is, a bach in yeshiva, especially in his younger years, until he finishes the yeshiva system, so to speak, in the typical American term, he should not have to be thinking, shouldn't be thinking. There's no reason that I was saying to be thinking about what's going to do for Parnassa, what am I going to be, and to be honest, if a person does the yeshiva experience properly, and that's another thing, but if they do it properly and they learn properly and internalize the messages of Chassidus and they internalize the Torah, so then they're fine. They'll be totally fine. Nothing tomorrow, nothing to even think about. The problem is people have this stress, and they come. Where is it coming from? It's coming from the family. It's coming from the streets. And people, the word on the street is, if you're in the system, then you're going to come out with no knowledge. You're not going to read and write in English. What's going to be, and this is a problem that still exists today. Let's try to continue. There's a lot more to be said, but we want to finish. Yesh alnamu limud schus alim, but we can learn the schus and then we can be nice. Shadavar babikla ha'avish. It's not the person themselves that thought this up, but it's coming from the surrounding environment. This is how it shouldn't be. V'gam klape zeh yesh no hiramina amen. Also in regards to this, that you shouldn't have this thought, even though that's coming from the environment. You shouldn't have this. How do we learn this? Think about it. In Mitzrayim, even though it's a very hard galus, they were so deep into goals, so difficult. They didn't have even a chance to think about what does it mean life outside of goals. But together with that, even to the extent that when Moshe comes and says, "Hey, Chevra, we're going to leave," they couldn't even hear him. So what are you talking about? Like we're in Golos. We're here. You're talking about we're going to go out of Mitzrayim. Like, stop talking Narishkeit. And this is how bad the situation was. But nevertheless, even before Moshe comes and says, "I've saved you, we're going," they didn't think at all what's going to be in the end. They had yeshivas and they learned. Even in Golos Mitzrayim, with our so stuck in Golos, they didn't think there was a way out of this, but they still had learning. Still had yeshivas. So therefore, even more so now, we shouldn't have such thoughts. What's going to be? Come and learn without any of these thoughts. And specifically, it's much easier now to make a Parnassa than it was back then. And especially even nowadays, it's much easier to be, you get Amazon and online jobs and and online companies. You make tons of money and people you can do it. It's much easier. Meaning there's things practically, there's a lot less reason to stress. How you do Shereish base nitzutzes mitoch haripach nitzutzes naflu kavar his baru begols mitzrayim. Had already out of Golos Mitzrayim, those out of the 248 sparks, 202 already were taken out. So there's only 46 left. 278 sparks. 288 sparks. 202 sparks. So we only have 86 sparks left to go. Now, guys, like it says, V'gam erev Rav Reish Beis Alitam took it with them, meaning 202 sparks they took with them. There's only left 86. Which is the gematria of Elikim, which is like nature, and even in those 86, with sweat and blood, sweat, and tears, they did more of this refining of this box. There's only little jugs, basically the last little bits. Where at the time period, the last little bits, the only thing left to be done. So therefore, it's much easier. First of all, there's only a little bit to mavire, to refine. And secondly, you have help from the, we only have a little bit to go. We're nearly there. It's like, finish line. You have the finish line, you get extra energy. The point is, the Rebbe is saying that there's a issue in the streets. There's an issue that when people go to yeshiva and they say to themselves, and they can't learn properly because they're worried how it's going to be. And the Rebbe says there's no need for it. Just a side point in regards to this, this is very important when we learn these things, we have to learn what to understand it. So we can formulate the understanding for ourselves. Because if let's say there's a bachur in yeshiva, that he's not connecting at all in yeshiva, and he's just wasting his time, and he's not learning anything. So that doesn't mean he can't go and get a job. But the point is, I was saying, if a person has to understand the attitude of yeshiva is very important. The way we look at going to yeshiva is not something a master, unfortunately, especially, a guy's from birth, brought in the system, he has to go to yeshiva. I have a friend, he's a teacher in yeshiva, and he said that the yeshiva is a youth hostel, meaning Baruch man coming there because they have this desire to learn. They come, this is in the system. This is what I have to do. And I also spoke to another person in teaching yeshiva, and he said the problem is people are going not to the place that's best for them. They're going to a place where it looks good, but it's not shaykh for them. So this is the caveat. Of course, if a person is honest to themselves and they go to the right place that's right for them, and they put in the right effort, the success that you'll have is far beyond your wildest imaginations. And that will be life transforming and can help you so much. So that's obvious. That's an obvious caveat we have to understand. It doesn't mean just send your kid to yeshiva. It doesn't matter if it's a good yeshiva, bad yeshiva, it's not shaykh for them. Of course, you have to do all those things. But what we're saying, the attitude is the earlier years of a person's life, from when they're born until they get married, they're saying they don't have to worry about making a parnassa. So what do you mean? But what's going to be when you make parnassa? So I'll explain to that, I think in a very logical, very simple way, that if you work on yourself as you're meant to when you're in yeshiva, and then the person really internalizes the message of yeshiva, and he learns properly and internalizes it, becomes a good person. When and I'll tell you a simple personal example, there was a few years when I got married, I wasn't able to work for legal reasons, and people kept on, and I started to understand Chassidus, and I was like, wow, and I started to really work on myself in a real way. And people don't tell me, you should take courses, so when you start working, you'll have a course. And I realized I don't need to take a course. What I need to be doing is keep on learning the Chassidus, internalizing Chassidus, and doing the avodah. So when that time comes, when I'm able to work, my mindset will be in a healthy place to be able to get that right job. And when that time came, it worked. It happened. I was able to find a job that I wanted. And it was a beautiful step in the right direction. And in Baruch Hashem, because of that, it is the process of getting me to Him. But if I would have been sitting there and the whole 6 years being stressed, what am I going to do for an hour? And I'm not saying I didn't stress. I stressed plenty. But it could have been so much better. And the point is, if I would have said that, if we sit there all the time stressed, what's going to be to me? I can't learn properly. What's the point? And this is what they're ever saying. There's a lot more to be said, and I wish we could have another brain about this, but we got to go. So everyone should have an amazing day, an amazing Shabbos, and hopefully the Sikha helped us understand a little bit of how we should view yeshivas and how important they are, and how important it is to go to yeshiva in a relaxed environment. Of course, finding the right yeshiva for yourself, or for your children, and having this discussion. But you realizing what can be gained and how much can be transforming to live the best lives, begashmis, not just beruchnias. Have an amazing Shabbos, everybody.